Midday Treat with NAZ Elite, a monthly podcast in which I chat with HOKA NAZ Elite team members, and you'll get a behind-the-scenes scoop on their training, racing, and everyday lives. I'm your host, Eric Senseman. You can find our monthly podcast on SoundCloud by searching HOKA NAZ Elite, and you can learn more about the faces behind the team by visiting their website, nazelite.com, their Facebook page, Northern Arizona Elite, or their Instagram and Twitter, both at NAZ_Elite. Welcome to this episode of Midday Treat with NAZ Elite. Ahead of the Chicago Marathon, I welcome Scott Smith and Steph Bruce. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So the Chicago Marathon is this weekend, Sunday. Gun goes off at
7:30.
7:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is 5:30 Pacific.
Yeah, so it'll be an early one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's discuss how things went leading up to the race, and then what you're hoping to do in the race, and then some fun questions at the end. So that's the plan.
Cool.
Steph, I'll start with you. Let's rewind a little bit. Your last race was
USA's on the track.
USA's on the track. That's right. And so that was
middle of July.
Middle
to end of July.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what has the block of training looked like leading up to Chicago since then?
So we kind of did like a, I don't know if non-traditional, but as we've been like evolving these training blocks, we did a little bit of a marathon block, like pre-USA's, because we knew like the main goal wasn't the 10,000 this summer, it was Chicago. So then kind of put in more like longer sessions, let's say on the weekends, and then I'd have like a 10K session midweek, and that was more in June and early July. So I got a fair amount of good long runs in then. And then ran USA's, had a blast there. That was such a cool opportunity to be able to race that with Kellen. We would have liked to maybe sneak on that world team, but regardless, I think we learned a lot of good things and gained some great experience from the race. And then I took like probably a week downtime and then slowly built back up. And then I kind of just had a really good stretch from like September 1st all the way to October 1st, where I was running like 100+ mile weeks and just getting long volume, marathon pace, and trying to relearn fueling. It's been over a year since my last marathon. So yeah, just kind of reminding the body like what's coming. Sure.
Yeah, and I want to get into some of the specific sessions. But Scott, how about for you in terms of the build up here to Chicago? Because you had some downtime. End of the spring, I guess.
Yeah, in June I got married, so I had some downtime after that, which was nice.
Because of the marriage, or
yeah. So had the honeymoon, and then took like probably ended up being like 2.5 weeks off after my last race from like the going to the wedding and then after the honeymoon. And so that was only in June though, so that afforded plenty of time to build up for a race in October. So we just kind of did a gradual build up. I did one race in the summer, just kind of last minute. Nicole is from Santa Cruz, where the race I kind of decided to do last minute was, and we were going to be visiting her family that weekend anyway, so I did it, and it did not go well. But the rest of the training went pretty well, and as a training run, it served its purpose. I just didn't race as competitively as I would have liked. But throughout...
that race was when?
Late July. Late July.
Okay.
Yeah. So I hadn't been doing all that much. I just kind of was right in the point of training where I had started to feel good before all the mileage started setting in, and thought I could maybe sneak a good performance in there, but I was wrong.
That happens sometimes.
Yeah. And then training up until now through August and September was probably one of the more consistent blocks I've had. It wasn't anything, I didn't absolutely destroy anything, but I didn't really have to like drop out of anything too important or not finish mini workouts like I have in the past. So overall, that was one of my most consistent blocks, and don't have any reason not to be optimistic on Sunday.
Sure. And it's not uncommon, in fact I'd say it's quite common for you all to run races in your build up to the marathon. but you don't really have any of that in this particular build-up. It's mostly just been training. Do you prefer to have some races mixed into a block to kind of like, remind you how to race, or does it make a whole lot of a difference? Would you just prefer the mileage, or?
It was challenging for me because I love racing, and it's not that long, so I can't even say this, but I feel like I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like this animal in a cage, but I race July 24th or whatever, but it feels like an eternity to me. So on one hand, I used to race a lot, I guess throughout the training cycles, but there is something to be said about we live up in the mountains, just stay up here, don't have any interruptions, don't have to travel, don't have to go through the emotions of having a race on the schedule. So it's it's important on one hand, and there's a little bit of just because I haven't had anything to test my fitness doesn't mean that isn't completely there. So I would say it has served its purpose, and it was intentional, at least for me, this block.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd probably give a very similar answer. I think we all do this because we love to race, and that's the most fun part of running. So there's been build-ups where I've raced and build-ups where I haven't. But I just kind of take each of those individually. And, this race or this build-up, I didn't actually, I guess, technically race, because if you section off the build-up, that race was probably before.
Sure.
But I don't think that that's either necessarily a deterrent or a positive when we do it. It's just kind of whatever's going to fit and make the most sense in the context of the block to have a successful marathon, because ultimately the marathon is the end goal and the most important of those build-ups.
Right. So you'll both be eager to when the gun goes off, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, can you point to, so I want to talk about the race itself and what your goals are there. I think part of figuring that out is some data points from training. So when you look at the race in Chicago and your goals there, sort of, I guess, what are those goals? And then was there a specific training session that kind of has given you the confidence that, that's a reasonable goal, or maybe a reach, but, something within your grasp on the day?
Do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we chose this race because at the time of selecting a fall marathon, U.S. marathoners were going to need an Olympic standard to do the trials.
Right.
So we were kind of approaching with 2:11:30 in mind. Now that's not the case because the trials have been granted gold label, so the top three will, by way of finishing top 5 at that race, inherently have the standard. But I don't think that goal has changed at all. I don't think that the training changed at all. So I'd still, 2:11:30 would be a big PR for me. I'd love to PR and then hopefully, see how much of a PR I can take out.
Sure.
I don't know that I had one particular workout that I would choose where I was okay, that's for sure. I just have accumulated so many workouts over the years, and if you put some of the workouts that I did this segment up against some of the other ones, maybe they weren't quite as, the intensity of a particular workout wasn't quite the same, but I still have that whole background from years past of marathon training. I guess up here, I've really struggled with long steady states at altitude before.
So you're human.
Yeah. But usually sometimes we've gone to sea level and done them, and they've gone, or lower elevation, and they've gone well for me. But I was able to get through the 16-mile steady state up here on kind of a tough day. I had a rough couple last miles, but I think overall the average was 5:15, 5:16 or something like that, which should be right around 5-minute pace, right around 2:11:30, right in that area. So, that was nice. As long as I've been doing that, that might have only been the first or second 16-mile steady state I've completed in Flagstaff. So that was kind of nice to get through.
And a quick follow-up, because, it sounds like you're relying on a body of work and experience. This will be, what number marathon for you?
I think 8th or 9th.
8th or 9th?
Yeah.
Okay. So definitely have experience on your side. Steph, what about you?
I'm actually very similar in a lot of ways to Scott, where there was really nothing in this build-up that I was like, oh my gosh, I can run this now. Truthfully, nothing was that impressive to me, and probably to Coach Ben. But I think because I have run 10 marathons and I have just like this decade of running behind me. I like pull a lot of my confidence from just the accumulation of all the work that I've done, and I feel like my body will know what to do out there. And I guess probably like my last year and a half of like racing other distances, and like bringing my times down there and running with women that I never used to run with, like that gives me a lot of confidence.
Sure.
And then like similar to steady states, I feel like I've always kind of had like a little bigger conversion up here, and so sometimes I just go back to like, okay, when I ran 2:29, I averaged 6-minute pace up here for steady state, and I've now been able to average like 10 to 12 seconds a mile faster. So that like shows me that minutes should come off my PR,
Right.
and like Scott, there are really no reasons to say why I shouldn't have a successful day on Sunday.
Sure. And so speaking of your previous marathons, you've run New York twice. So that obviously that, I imagine that could have fit into your schedule this year. So why did you end up choosing Chicago over New York this year?
I had never done Chicago, and as I get later in my career, I kind of just have these races that like are on my checklist, and I want to make sure I do them. And Chicago is like a very iconic American marathon, and having run Boston already, New York twice, it just made sense. And I've actually never raced in the city of Chicago, so that's like very exciting to me too. It's rare that I find a city that I haven't raced in this late in my career. That, and then I guess like the funny story about it was last year in London, I didn't know Carrie Pinkowski, the race director, and after the race, my husband Ben and I were sitting at a table with all the like world marathon major race directors, and Ben was to my left and Carrie was on the other side of him, and like I went to shake his hand and I just went like this and spilled my champagne glass, skipped Ben, and it went onto Carrie's lap. And at that moment, I was like, well, I guess I'm never running to a marathon. So I remember like texting Josh being like, I'm not sure if you're going to get an appearance fee for me because I just spilled champagne on the race director. So it's kind of like this fun thing we have now that everyone got over that. And he invited me to run the race. And so I was very excited for that invitation. It just made sense with the timing to have an earlier fall marathon with the trials coming up. And then I also wanted like a flat, fast course.
Sure. So Scott, you didn't mention this, so I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
You paced at Chicago.
I did.
Year. Yeah. You paced 30K? How far did you go?
Just under 18 miles.
Just under 18. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot of the course.
Yeah.
3/4, almost. So, what impact do you think that has going into because I imagine in your previous marathons you had not seen 3/4 of the course.
Yeah.
So, talk to me about kind of what that experience might do for you on race day.
First of all, it's a really cool experience to pace one of my good friends and longtime teammate Aaron with Scott out there. So that was just something that was like really cool for us to be able to do for Aaron. But I remember being out there and just thinking like, man, there's so many stretches where you can just get in like a locked in really good rhythm. And I think that's one of my strengths as a runner, is just kind of locking in and being able to hold a pace for a long period of time. So that was more than just like, because it's flat. Like I don't really remember anything to slow it down. So I don't remember taking like really specific mental notes other than like, wow, if we get a good day, this is a really fast course.
Sure.
And then the it's a major marathon in a big city, so the crowd support was really awesome, and it was a really fun experience. And this time two of the guys on our team, Matt and Sid, will be pacing, so kind of get to flip the script a little bit and just tuck in and let them worry about splits for hopefully 18 miles.
Yeah. Awesome. And what would you tell Steph if there's anything you gained information wise?
I think she's so like it's so flat from what I remember. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there'll be places where like, God damn it, this guy said it was flat.
But it feels like that hill. Now
it's like I just was like, man, and maybe it's because I've ran some like tougher courses or stuff like that and haven't really like tried to time trial race before, but I was just like, man, this is awesome.
There's a bit of a hill at the end.
Yeah, everyone's talked about that.
Yeah, right.
I think it's just where it comes to,
exactly.
like, the challenging
just
part.
like 26 miles or something.
I remember like watching the coverage, and I don't know if it was just more like the angles, but like through downtown there looked like were some like big dips. But do you think that was just like the camera angle? Like when Aaron was leading in Chicago, I just felt like I saw some,
there are some like
just like
over, not they're not even
rollers.
overpasses, just like, and they're nothing like New York
Significant.
bridges, but just kind of just
rollers.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably all I saw.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I feel like you need that, like, because when your legs are in the same rhythm, like on a flat course, like you're using the same muscles.
Right.
So it's I remember like Shalane Flanagan saying that when she ran Berlin, she's like, I needed to train to just like use my glutes the whole time because there was literally it was dead flat. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yep, it does. So when it comes to the race, again, you talked a little bit about your goals, but how much of, I suppose, your approach to the race is based on, yourself versus the field, which is to say, how much of your race strategy takes into account the field you're running against? I mean, Chicago, again, being a world major, is going to have competitive fields. So, how much does that weigh into your strategy when it comes to the race?
Yeah, for me personally, I think, and this is how I just approach the marathon, like, you got to race the marathon, that first 20 miles, and then if you have the chance to race people that last 10K, that's what you do. And, being in races like New York, CIM, and Honolulu, like those were races where there is a little more, I guess, strategy that goes into it, because people aren't just setting out at like one pace because of the nature of the course, where I think this is very different. Like, people have ideas of how fast they think they can run. So I think there will be lots of groups and separation. And so for me, like when I envision place goals, like I'm going to have to run into those places late in the race. I'm not going to put myself in that position mile 3 or 4 in. And so it very much is like, I got to run like within myself that first 20. And then to me, like when it counts is that last 10K. And that's kind of when I go for beating people and taking spots.
Sure.
Yeah, I approach it similarly, I think. And one thing that I'm excited about in Chicago is the American field is pretty solid, because I think a lot of people had a similar mindset that Chicago is going to be a place where I have to go attack a standard. So it's kind of a good, and obviously it's not the whole American field that will be at the Olympic trials, but it's kind of a good testing ground to see where you stack up against the other American men. I think the majority of the American men will have a similar goal and probably be part of that group that Sid and Matt will be pacing for. So to kind of, once Sid and Matt step off, to kind of compete against those guys, I think will be a fun challenge and something I'm looking forward to kind of visualize for the trials.
Sure. As a quick aside, your teammate Matt Baxter just won the Rock and Roll San Jose half, so that was great.
He did.
What did he run? 62:57 or so. So what over under making it past halfway?
She said he might go the whole way, so I'm saying definitely over.
All right, so definitely over. All right. He's only going to be running 2 minutes slower through half.
He said it won't even be hard.
He said it should be a jog.
Yeah.
It should be a jog. Yeah. That's great. Well, that'll be, a unique experience for you. But speaking of the trials, and you both mentioned it, which will be this upcoming February, how does this fit into that larger goal? Obviously, the trials is the primary goal. So is running Chicago about just another opportunity to get experience at the marathon ahead of the trials? Is it about racing certain people? How's it fitting in for you?
For me, like, I'm trying to have the trials just on the back burner, and like I don't like to look past my next race. So Chicago is very much like focused on Chicago, and then I think come October 14th that we can talk all things trials. I just think especially like in my career, I had put the trials on a pedestal many times, and I have missed making the Olympic teams. And so I'm not trying to make it this huge other race that is like so above anything else. And so hopefully for me, like Chicago is like, okay, it's just another opportunity like to see how good I can be on the day.
Sure.
Yeah.
I allow myself to think past a little bit to the trials, and a good performance in Chicago can kind of be like, when I ran the 2016 trials, it was like all kind of internal convincing that I belonged as one of the competitors taking a hack at making the team that day. Whereas if Chicago goes well and what I've done in between the 2016 trials and now and the 2020 trials, hopefully that body of work kind of gives me the confidence to go into the trials with a little more substantiation than just kind of like, I had a really good training segment before the 2016 trials, but nothing I've done in my career has really shown that I have the possibility to make that team, whereas like Chicago would be, if it goes really well, kind of, at least show myself that I'm able to make that team.
Yeah. So I want to put you on the spot to wrap up here about Chicago. So last question on Chicago, then we'll move to some fan questions, and there are some good ones, so stay tuned here for that. Your best day at Chicago, what do you think in terms of time and or place? Scott, we'll start with you.
I'd love to be top 10, and I think if it shapes up to be a good day and the Pacers do a good job, I hope that 210 is in the realm of possibilities for me, and I don't like to take anything off the table on a good day. So yeah, just like Steph said, run smart for 20 and then look up and see how many people I can go get that last 10K.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I would say the best version of me or best day is running under 226 and trying to be on the podium.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Well, best of luck to you guys out there. Look forward to watching it this weekend. Let's before we move to these rapid fire questions, it's worth noting, if you're watching this and not just listening, you've seen these shirts and this hat that we're all donning. This is merch that will be for sale potentially by the time this comes out.
Okay.
Cool. We've already somehow acquired our pieces.
Wow.
I don't know how that happened.
How it happens.
Inside info.
They need models.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got the 70s tee. I don't know. Does that have a name?
Ben's gonna get on naming
Yeah.
pieces, I think.
It'll be a naming.
Yeah, the
process.
cool part is like all these pieces that are gonna come out, I think are gonna have like meaning among
Yeah.
our team and among like either different workouts or different, I guess, people. Like Alfine just launched her beanie business, and like at first she was just doing it as like a side thing, and then it started to like transform into this. She calls it resiliency beanies because I think she's using that as like that was her coming back from injuries over the last year and a half and having this resiliency. And I think a lot of people can like identify with that. And so hopefully like however you see either these pieces of apparel visually appealing to you, but like there could be a little more meaning that you could attach to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, look for we'll have it in the show notes hopefully. And these will be for sale on the website, I assume. Yeah, I'm getting confirmation there. So yeah, check out the merch.
At NAZ Elite Shop.
There you go. And is it .shop?
Sure. Just Google it.
Just Google NAZ Elite Shop. Perfect. Thank you, Steph. Okay, rapid fire questions. So these would be rough, sentence, 2 maybe, a couple words, whatever you're feeling. We've got about 10 to run through. And these are from those of you that commented on social media, so thank you for participating. Nutrition during a taper. Do you do anything different, Steph?
No, I just, biggest thing is keeping the calories up. Even though like you're running less, you should not bring your calories back down because you want your glycogen tank to be totally topped off. So you want to make sure you're keeping everything in. And for me personally, like I normally eat dessert most nights. So I try to be like, well, I'm not going to take that out just because I have a race coming up. So I try to keep everything like pretty much the same.
Okay, Scott?
I've kind of done something similar since college. Before big races, I would call like my normal diet unleaded, and then like the week or two going to big race, start putting the premium. So like more vegetables and less fast food.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Maybe that's just a general thing.
Yeah.
You should just go premium all the time. Race, I think I'm reading this right. Nutrition while traveling. So do you have any tips, I guess, on, you're in the airport and so forth, and that makes it a little bit complicated.
You kind of just have to make do with what you have. I think the biggest thing for me has not been getting too attached to a routine before a race, and that has to do with traveling because you don't know what you're going to encounter along the way. So, yeah, just being okay with what there is provided.
Yeah.
I think because I have like a few food allergies, so I have a couple more restrictions. I just stick to like when I'm traveling places that I know that have worked for me. So like if there's a Chipotle, a Five Guys burger, like I've eaten that a day before a race, like a burger and fries, because I know that that is safe for me. And I usually try to find a Whole Foods in a city and do like the hot bar, and then I will pack, obviously I pack my own snacks like Bicky bars and stuff like that. But when I'm traveling, like we'll probably pack like 2 meals to try to get me through, let's say like a lunch and maybe a dinner while I'm on the airplane, and that is something like rice, ground beef, avocado, pretty basic, but like what I eat in my normal daily life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pre-marathon warm-up. What do you got, Steph?
We should shout out Art for this, because I think Art was one of the people that asked.
This is our Gaucho teammate. Art. Okay. Yep. 1 mile. We usually run. Yeah. Sometimes not even a mile. Like if you're running slow and.
I actually like to feel like I'm under warmed up to start a marathon, because then you kind of have the sensation 3, 4, 5 miles in that it starts to get easier. Right. Hopefully. Like sometimes sometimes I even simulate it before a workout. Like before a really long workout, I don't necessarily like hammer strides. I just kind of do a couple quicker runs, and it's like, oh man, this workout's gonna suck, and then it starts to kind of flow a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the idea is you don't want to start like burning carbs like too soon. And so it was really funny when I ran CIM last year. It starts pretty early, and so it was dark warming up, and so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go a mile. And like 2 things: you're warming up for a marathon. It's early and it's dark. And I got to like 9:04, and I was like, all right, haven't hit a mile, but I feel pretty good that I should probably stop running. But we're like running around this parking lot, and it's just taking a while. Maybe the Garmin was wrong, but that might sound silly, like running a 9-minute mile before, but like you are just trying to teach your body, like, okay, gently warm up and get ready for what we're about to do.
Sure. Nutrition during the race. What do you take, Steph?
Traditionally, I have done like Gatorade and gels, pretty old school. I think I'm sticking with that for this one, and we just alternate. Like we're very lucky. We have elite fluid stations, so we have bottles every 5K, and so I will typically alternate a Gatorade in one station and then gel with water. I would never really combine like a gel and Gatorade, too much carbohydrate, and then I almost I make my Gatorades a little more, they're more concentrated early on, and then they get a little more watery as the race goes on, as your stomach is having a harder time digesting.
Right.
I'm going to use Martin, or Martin, however it's pronounced. Used it for the past few marathons and training segments, and I've liked it.
It's worked well.
Yeah.
Favorite pair of casual HOKAs? So
I'm a big Hupana fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The wool or the?
I have them on.
Yeah. I like the wool ones.
Yeah, the Hupanas.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got them right there.
Yeah.
The wool picks up a lot of dog hair, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah, in general, I like the look of them a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly,
I think that was my cousin too.
Oh, the answer?
Mitchell.
Nice.
Thanks for the question, Mitchell.
I struggle because there are so many good casual ones. Like I only run in like 3 or 4 pair,
right?
And then all the other ones are casual to me. So like I love the Kavu, I love the Hupana. Now they have like the Hupana slip, and then we have the recovery slides now. Yep. So there are a lot to choose from. I just like rotate them throughout the week.
And what about race day shoe? Speaking of shoes, and why?
I'm gonna go with the Carbon X. I've used it. I mean, it's relatively new to us as of the spring, so I don't know that anyone on our team has done a marathon in them yet. But I ran the 25K champs in them and didn't have any problems with it, so gonna stick with it.
I'm going to do the Carbon Rocket, and I've been racing in that shoe since Peachtree in 2018. Like I ran 10Ks and 5Ks in them, and then I did like my build-ups for New York, and then I ran New York and CIM, and I love them. Like I think they're one of the best long-distance shoes, and they're so versatile. I think many different strides can be successful in them, and so I'm excited to wear those on Sunday.
Couple things more, I guess, running specific or racing specific, especially with respect to Chicago. How do you balance the crowds, the energy from the crowds, and kind of staying calm, not letting that, I guess, overwhelm you and speed you up too much?
I think at a course like Chicago, it's easier. Well, because you should have like a relative time goal in mind, I would say, in Chicago if your training has gone well. So yeah, there may be crowds, but just allow them to make the pace you're running feel easy rather than speed up and, you know, pay for it later.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like the part of these big races like I love, and I think it's what I have to do, like especially for, I've run New York and London, so I think I have experience like with that crowds, and I just try to like use that energy like that I get early on and almost like bottle it up, kind of like we said, and then like save it for later, because I've also heard there are some stretches late in Chicago where it's just empty and lonely and there's no one cheering, and maybe if you have the energy from early, people bottled up, you internally can try to let that bottle out and be like, all right, pretend you hear people cheering for you.
Right.
That's what I do a lot. Like, oh yeah, do you hear all those people? And just no one.
And you might be hearing things anyway at that point. So,
totally. Exactly. But yeah, that's like, I just remember like those people would they think it's like amazing what we're doing, and you never want to like forget that or take that for granted, because we train and we have these high goals, and we even see people who are so much faster than us, you know, and we might look up to them, like all these people on the sidelines are feeling that way towards us, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Cues to speed up cadence. So imagine this person's envisioning that you're getting tired during a race and you're slowing down.
I think that's probably is not to go faster than you've been running, but to maintain the pace.
Right.
You know, it's tough, and there are a lot of turns. I think not a ton of turns in Chicago, but those are things late in the race that can kind of throw your cadence off. Yeah. So if you encounter, you know, a 90-degree turn or something that breaks your momentum, just kind of mentally being like, okay, I'm gonna take 5 or 10 steps to get back on. Yeah. Something like that. That's kind of a tough one because everyone has unique strides, but something like that.
At least I know when I'm like in a workout and I get tired, I like sometimes go to my feet and I just try to think like paw off the ground. Like I tell myself like push off the ground, and maybe like your body will, like your momentum will carry you forward. That's what helps me. Or I like ask my glutes like start firing or start working. Sure. Because it's really easy like when you're getting tired to like be sitting back and then you're trying to use your arms more. But I just think like feet, push off the ground, and then glutes activate. Yeah. So just being a little more intentional, I guess. Kind of. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Last couple. People want to know how you would have a social life with intense training like you go through. Big assumptions here. Saying we do have social lives.
I mean, I think
that is the assumption. Yeah.
We're fortunate enough to train with a team, and I consider like easy runs kind of a social outlet. It's probably like a real loser thing to say.
It's a very runner thing to say. Yeah.
We go to Diabloburg on Wednesday nights. Sometimes I come to the Roundup.
Yeah, we've had some Sunday beers.
Yeah. So I mean, there's not much.
I have some great conversations with my 4 and 5-year-olds, so that's pretty social. No, like it is funny. Like I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, oh, when is the last time I've like done something like cool? And it was a long time ago. But I think what's like super worth it to us is it's not necessarily like when you're choosing this, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to like not go out, not go get drinks, not do all those things, because then when you have like everything come together on race day, like that all becomes worth it. And I think we all have like really balanced lives that we know how to have a good time, like in times of the year that it counts, and then also like we know how to be like really focused for our training cycles and our races. And so I wouldn't say we're missing out on a lot of things that we crave, because we're all runners for a reason, and I think we get that like fulfillment from running. Yeah, absolutely. One more question for both of you, and very quickly, 2 quick questions for Scott. Scott threw up on his Instagram, asked me a question, so
people asked a couple. I was surprised.
They were worth asking, I think. And I've written down mustache ?
I don't know. I was in a wedding about a week last weekend, so I had to be clean shaven.
I was just gonna say, I can't believe this is only a week.
Well, it was buzzed, and then so it was like, but I don't know that I can do the mustache justice in the next 6 days, and I would like to do it justice if I'm going to do it. And there's some competitive mustaches out there. Some of the Roots guys have pretty strong mustaches right now, so I can't really go to that one half-hearted.
So you might have to double down on the trials.
Like would yours be like competitive?
His is strong. Yeah.
Okay. So
I could do that, but like not in the next 6 days. Okay. No, I think I might just go with this look.
Okay. All right. You're going with it. You just kind of scruff.
I think the Cardinals just scored, by the way.
Oh, did they? This is great news. Okay. Other quick one, Scott. The people of Oklahoma love you. Let's start there. I think if you ever wanted a political career...
Steph's going to Oklahoma to speak.
You are?
Yeah, at Scott's rival store.
Oh, is that right?
Red Coyote.
Yeah, I was an OK Runner guy.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So.
Well, someone, I forget who has this, Scott, but they want to know if you're going to come back to Oklahoma and revisit...
I loved Oklahoma. There. Yeah, it was fun. Those guys out there, they love running as much as... or more than anyone I've ever met. So that crew that I used to run with out there was real fun to run with. And Oklahoma has surprisingly good races for the Tulsa run is one of the, outside of like the US 15K championships, is probably one of the more competitive 15Ks in the country. I guess Boilermaker's up there, but and then the Oklahoma City Marathon is a really unique event. It centers around the bombings, and so it's kind of a unique, special thing to take part of. I ran that before as a relay and as a half marathon. So yeah, I'd love to get back out there and race. It's just the conditions out there are never super good, but I think that breeds a certain type of runner, and the guys I trained with were definitely those type of guys. So I love training with them.
Go run in Oklahoma for a summer.
Yeah,
you'll be a different person. Yeah. All right, last question. So I guess I've just learned that you both went to UCSB, and your mascot is
Gaucho.
Yeah, what is that?
You don't know?
No.
It's Argentinian cowboy.
Okay, very nice. Yeah. So what was your favorite college race?
I'll go first because mine will be far more underwhelming than Steph's.
And this is, I didn't have that many good races. This is from our teammate, Bethany. Nice job. Thanks, Bethany.
B-Mom, great nickname.
I guess one of my great steeplechaser.
Yeah.
Great beer pong partner.
Great share of pancakes and omelets.
Yeah. Great person.
Yeah.
One of my last races was the conference track championships, and I had always kind of had bad experiences in the 5K at conference. It's just the last race that everyone gets thrown into, and me and my teammate went 1-2 and so that was a really fun thing for us to both be able to go first and second in the conference. Because we had never won. We didn't win the team title, but we had a strong team that year, and the team dynamic was really good. So it was really fun to be able to win in front of our team.
Right. Steph?
Okay. I was going back and forth between like sometimes most memorable isn't always like when you did your best, but this one is like my best, I guess, for the day. It was NCAAs in Sacramento in 2007. And the year before, I had been 8th in the 10,000, and so I was running it again. But I started to just like not feel very good as the season was going on, and I had never really gotten blood tests before, but that was like one of the first times like we did some blood profile. And after I like tanked a 5K, we got my blood tested, and at that time my ferritin was 4. And that was like very alarmingly low. Apparently they were like, how are you alive, let alone like running? And I didn't like know very much about like blood levels back then, and so I started like getting on this liquid iron supplement. And then we got to NCAAs, and I took a blood test right before, and my coach Pete Dolan was like, I'm not going to tell you like what it is, because I was like, okay, I think I'm feeling better. And it was like the hardest 10,000 I've ever run in my life, and I just like dug as deep as I could, and I ended up getting 5th place, not in like this crazy amazing time. I think I was either, I can't remember if that was the year I was 33:30 or 34:01. And then I finished the race, and I go up to him and I was like, oh my gosh, like awesome, like what was my iron, what was my ferritin? And he was like 5.
Jesus.
So it had gone at one point, and I think that like really opened my mind to a couple things of like, that showed me that maybe my potential in college had never really been reached because of a couple of those things. 2, I also need to figure out why I wasn't absorbing iron, and then I found out I had celiac. But yeah, it was kind of just this like, it showed me like that I just kind of like gutted out a performance that maybe like on paper I shouldn't have done, or that the people that were maybe more talented like should have beat me, and that kind of, I guess, set a tone for the rest of my professional career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Thanks.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up, guys. Thank you again to the fans that commentated with the questions. Get your merch, NAZ Elite Shop.
Yep.
And best of luck to both of you at Chicago this weekend.
Thank you. And last thing, if anyone is in Chicago, we're going to do an NAZ Elite meetup. And we're going to do that Saturday morning at around 10:15 at the Host Hotel, which is the Hilton. And that's on Michigan Avenue. Most people in Chicago will know that. And right down in the lobby, there is this little eating area. There's like a coffee bar. It's called Urban Kitchen.
We know the name of the Host Hotel?
Hilton.
Hilton's okay.
Yep. Yeah, and so we're going to be posted up there. It'll be myself and like 8 or 7 NAZ Elite dudes and Coach Ben.
Yeah.
So 10:15 on Saturday morning.
Sounds like a blast. I'm not going to be in Chicago, otherwise I'd be there.
Oh, there was one more question I saw somewhere about a guy offering if he could buy us drinks afterwards.
Ooh.
And that's an absolute yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
How should he find you?
I don't know. If he finds us though and
He'll
the
find
free
us.
drinks are coming, I'm not saying no.
So there you have it. They will be accepting free drinks. All right. Well, thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.